Recipes. Yes, we're going to talk about recipes, calibrating pH meters. Well, welcome back. I'm George. Yes, the channel that does still dare to unlock those mysteries of home distilling. And we're here to serve you. Just got back from our trip to Florida. Awesome! Oh, yes, had a great time. Met with Homer, met with Nate, and of course spent a day with Mike. But, and yes, there was some trading off of some specials that, we drug along with us and we brought back with us. And so, what an enormous uplifting experience that we had going through Mississippi, Alabama, Louisiana, and Florida, and not necessarily in that order, okay? Oh, had a great time. Looking forward to the next trip. Now, I'm back here trying to get reacquainted with the with the shop. I've got my bug salt gun out. Yeah, I got this about 2 years ago for a present, and I've loved it ever since. Load it with salt, and it's like a shotgun for flies. I don't know how they get in here, but we'll take care of them most directly. Let's start this conversation off with recipes, okay? And I'm going to describe to you why I don't normally get into the conversation about specific recipes except for the ones that we do on the video. They're pretty straightforward. Ask yourself the following couple of questions. Why do most bourbon distilleries use corn, rye, and barley? 3 basic ingredients. Why do most of, or a lot of, your vodka distilleries use wheat and barley? You notice I didn't add a whole bunch of other stuff in there. They have found that stuff just works. By golly, it works. And for those of you who think that you're going to open up the kitchen cabinet, and you're going to start pulling stuff down, you're going to throw a concoction together, and like an NFL scout, there's someone out there looking for your recipe. Please, you're going to be terribly disappointed because they're not. They know what works. They've been doing this for hundreds of years. They know what works, and they get the same results all the time. But recipes in specific, or in particular, when you use the term recipe, it is a mixture of ingredients, and of course, the outcome is what you have desired. All right? So if I gave you a recipe that I use and that you put together, trust me, it is not going to be exactly the same. It'll be very, very similar, of course. We're using the same things. But it's not going to be exactly this. Ask a chef, and he'll tell you that, it all depends on temperatures, timing, when you add ingredients, how you add ingredients, what you do with it. So all those other influences play a role in what your final product is going to be, or what it's going to taste like. Now, I want to give you a caution. And here's the controversial part of it, is that, and again, I don't mean to offend anyone, but if you have a secret recipe, you need to, maybe you need to just check it at the door. If you know what I mean. There's no secret to recipes. What are recipes? You're going to love this. This is George's recipe for all spirits, fermentable sugars, water, and yeast. That's all there is to it. Now, someone that tells you that I have, oh yeah, that's pretty good, isn't it? Yeah, there's a secret recipe. I am telling no one because I don't want no one to have it. Well, of course, this is a channel where we're transparent. We'll share everything and anything with you. I don't get into recipes with people because I have found in the past that when I say, well, yeah, a couple pounds of this, a couple pounds of that, and a little bit of this. And they do that, and then guess what? They call me back and go, George, that's a bad recipe. It didn't work. I'm like, it works for me. If you didn't do it the way I did it, all of a sudden, it is my fault. So I usually don't get into specific recipes because recipes are nothing more than fermentable sugars, water, and yeast. How you get those fermentable sugars is totally up to you. So think about that. Think about that. When someone says, I got a secret recipe and I'm not sharing it with anybody, what are you really holding back? So I'm always wary about when someone uses the term, oh, this is a secret recipe and no one else can have it. That's not what this community is all about to start with, but okay. And you know, you'll find out that chances are they're going to tell you what it is anyway. That after a couple of drinks, they just can't help it. Then you'll find out it's just maybe a little bit of Karo syrup, maybe a little bit of brown sugar. It could be some maple syrup. I mean, it could be a variety of things, but what are they all? Fermentable sugars, water, and yeast, okay? And how you get there is totally up to you. So just remember that when someone approaches you and it's your process. Remember we talked about that three-legged stool? We mention that all the time. In the distilling community, in order to be successful, well, this is not the only, but to be successful, you need to make sure you maintain those three legs on that stool, which is ingredients, equipment, and process. And should one of those be faulty, it tips over. And it's like junk in, junk out. So if you have quality equipment, you have quality ingredients, and you have a good, solid process, what are the results? You're right. A good quality product. If you shortchange on one of those three, what do you have? A less than quality product. So that's my 2 cents on recipes. Recipes are a dime a dozen. Look, if you're interested in a recipe for rum, whiskey, brandy, bourbon, the internet is loaded, and I'm talking about loaded with recipes. Please try them. They're all, believe it or not, they're all pretty darn good. And you know why they're pretty good? Because they all revolve around those three items: fermentable sugars, water, and yeast. That's what they are. Let's move on to pH. A little bit about pH. And just as a real quick review, the pH meter, okay, and I've got a couple of them here. I've got this one, and this is it's a digital pH meter. And I've got another one here that I just got, and this one's pretty neat. And I'll describe all of that to you because it's really, really simple and straightforward. But I've got a scale down here that I've laid out, and the pH runs from 1 to 14, okay? And then 7 right here in the middle, right about there, somewhere around there, is neutral, okay? And if it's neutral, then what you have is it's not acidic and it's not alkaline, which they would call base, okay? But as you work your way down the scale, it becomes more acidic and more acidic and more acidic. And of course, as you work your way up the scale, it becomes more base, more alkaline, more base. How do we get it to go from 7 below? Because we're always looking for what? I know you're with me. Come on, we've done this several times, okay? Our sweet spot is 5.2 for a mash, and it can be as low as 3.4 or so for wines. But we're looking for an acidic environment, and that is down in this direction, okay? And how do we get there? Well, we can use citric acid. We can actually use acid blend because that's tartaric, citric, and malic acid all together, and it does the same thing, but I like using acids individually as opposed to grouped together. If you know how to use them, they're amazing. But citric acid you can find in your local Walmart. You can find it in the canning section, okay? It comes in a great big container. It's dirt cheap, and you can use that. Or you can squeeze a lemon. Listen, for those of you who wrote in who said, well, I don't want to squeeze a lemon because I don't want to give that lemon flavor into my mash. Listen, my friends, for the 0.2 ounces of lemon juice that you would use, you follow me? If you think that that is going to taint or it's going to change the flavor of a 5-gallon batch of mash, well, you're rationalizing this way off in the wrong direction, okay? So, okay, for you guys, don't use a lemon juice, okay? Just use citric acid. All right, now, if, let's say, for instance, we're at way down here, and we go all the way down to 3, and we go, oh, I want to bring it back up. A little bit of baking soda in there, okay? George, how much baking soda? I don't know. I don't know where you're at. If it's like at 3, I'll put like a half a teaspoon, you know, and then stir it up and then check it. If it only comes up by 1 point, well, then put another teaspoon in there, you know, or another half a teaspoon, whatever it takes to bring yourself back up to 5.2. Now, what is my sweet spot? My sweet spot over here is, anywhere between like 4.8 and 5.4, okay? You'll be okay, trust me. Okay, one last thing I want to say about pH is once, okay? I get this all the time. Please, pH is a preparation for yeast and fermentation only. Only. Gotta say that. Once you adjust the pH and you start your fermentation, please do not mess with pH again. Okay? You're chasing something that's not necessary, and if I have led you astray unintentionally, I will apologize. But no, you only adjust pH one time. Okay? I've even had people say try to adjust pH after distillation. Please leave it alone once. That's why I always say it's so simple, it's so straightforward. Adjust the pH to 5.2 and move on. And never to be touched again, okay? And here's how we do this, okay? When I got this meter came with this pH buffer solution. And the buffer solution is used, it comes in 3 packs, okay? And this is made as pH 4, 6.86, and 9.18. Why they chose that, I don't know. But those are the numbers, all right? And they use that for calibration. Now, you've got two methods of calibration. By the way, well, yeah, there's 2 standards of measurement of calibration, and there's 2 methods. One is with this small screwdriver, and I've got one of these. If you have one, they work just great. But there's a small screw on the back here, right next to the clip. And what you'll do is you'll set that in there, you'll turn it on, and you'll adjust it until you get to the proper pH. And that's what the set screw is used for. In this particular one, when we'll put this one in there, we've got a calibration button that we'll push, and it'll do the calibration for us. Voila. Technology. Go figure. All right. With these 3 here, what you do is I've got distilled water, all right? You can distill your own, or you can go down to Walmart and get one for like 80 cents a gallon. It's dirt cheap. And what you do is we'll open these up. Now I've got 3 quart jars. And the reason I have 3 quart jars is because this mixture requires 250 milliliters, milliliters, okay? 250 milliliters, and on the back of the packet, it'll tell you that is 8.45 ounces. And I like using the small jars because they're easier to access and work with, but they hold less than 250 milliliters, and I'll show you what I do. So I'll take the first one. Let's do this. We'll start off with 4, okay? I'll take 4. And this is really, really straightforward. And I know I'm boring the hell out of everybody, but somebody's going to write in and say, George, why didn't you show us mixing it? Well, look at that. See how hard that was? Okay. You mix that, and then you just stir it until that powder disappears. And then we'll do the same thing for the 6.8. Now, also, this is supposed to be tested at room temperature, and what they consider room temperature is 77 degrees Fahrenheit. 77 degrees Fahrenheit, and they also write it on here, 25 degrees Celsius. So, you know, you wouldn't imagine, while I'm doing this, the number of people, you know, and I'll just say, Alexa, what is 25 degrees Celsius in Fahrenheit?
25 degrees Celsius is 77 degrees Fahrenheit.
Imagine that. But I'll get people that'll write in and say, oh, yeah, okay, you guys on the imperial system, you know, you need, what, George, you need to convert it and put it on the screen for us. You see how easy I just did that? I would offer that you can do the same thing. You think? Who knows? All right. See, what I want to do is I want to get this stuff to dissolve. That's the 6.8. Oh, and then the last one is the 9.18. We're going to go at it here. There. Then we'll mix that up. Now, when we come back, because I'm going to take a real quick break here. When we come back, what I am going to do is, and this is a good idea for you, now, how long will this last? This will last as long as you don't have anything outside influence into it, as in a bacteria of some sort, because even distilled water is going to grow something if you've got it infected with something, okay? But in general terms, it'll last for quite a while. So you can use the buffer solution over and over again. You know, you should calibrate these about once every 2 months, 3 months, at some point, okay? I mean, just to check the calibration and make sure that it's not off. But you can save this. You don't have to toss it every time you use it. So what I'll do is when we come back, you'll notice that I'll take this one, this 4, and I'll just tape it to the outside of this jar. And then when I'm done with it, I'll put the lid on it, stick it up on the shelf, and then next time I want to, I just, okay? You don't follow me? Good. Now, we already talked about the 2 methods, and if you're going to calibrate your pH meter, and this one, chances are you'll probably use this method. There's 2 methods, okay? One is a pH, and then the other one is a precision pH. The difference is 0.1 plus or minus 0.1. So if we only calibrated it to just the base calibration and we tested it, it could be either 5.1, 5.2, or 5.3 if it reads 5.2, okay? It's plus or minus 0.1. If we're using this one in particular, which is a little bit more accurate, if you use all 3 of these, you could get a error rate of 0.01. So you become more precise. You followed me? Yeah, it's much more a much more precise calibration if you use all 3. All right, but if you're only going to use the base, then just use the center one. That is what the 6.86. All right, just calibrate the 6.86, and you can go from there. And from then on, you're pretty good. All right. I shall return shortly. Well, now this one is just a little bit different. And what makes it different is its accuracy. It breaks it down to 2 decimal places. So instead of this regular pH meter, which would give me 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, whatever, this one will give me 5.12, 5.13, 5.15. You follow me? It'll break it down into 2 decimal places. And the way this actually works, this is kind of neat because you just push the on button. There we go. For the first time we use it, we rinse it off, clean it off, and we go to the, and now this one, each one is going to be a little bit, so just read the directions. And this one, you put it in here, and then you push the calc button for 5 seconds, There it goes. And it calculates and it zeroes to 4.000, okay? And then we do the same thing. Whoops, let me rinse it. Clean it off. And this one, push the calc button and hold it. And it reads 6.86. That's it. What's it? Yep, 6.86. So that one's calibrated. And then we go to the last one. And this is 9.18, I do believe. And okay, got it in there. And then we push the calc button and hold it for 5 seconds. And there it is, 9.18. So this one's good for at least a couple of months. I'd give it, oh gosh, if you got this, why not use it, right? Okay. Now, last but not least, all I'll do is put the lids on these and stick them up on the shelf, and we'll have them for quite a while. And should I run out and need some more, if I look in there, how do you know when it goes bad? Is if you look in there, you'll see something growing. Then you'll know that, yeah, you've probably got something snuck in here while we had the jars open, and it decided it wanted to grow. But those will stay good for a long time. And I've got some more if I need it. That's all there is to calibrating a pH meter. Hopefully I haven't bored you totally to death, but that brings us to a close. And we talked about, of course, recipes. You know how I feel about recipes. They're a dime a dozen. And pH. Gosh, we wish you the very best in the future. And don't forget to subscribe, share us with your friends, comment below. Happy distilling.